NASCAR is dying, and there seems to be nothing that could stop the sport from falling apart. Drivers and team owners are raging, and it's all because of one untold issue that wouldn't even cross your mind. And it seems like there's no going back, as a NASCAR split is becoming more and more likely within the day. So stay with us as we go through the brutal state of NASCAR, hear the criticism the likes of Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin had toward NASCAR, and exactly what would make the team owners leave the sport forever, and why fans are completely done with NASCAR too. There is so much news to go through, but not to waste your time, we've summarized it all into just 8 minutes. As things stand, NASCAR is facing two major issues, and it seems like the sport has no idea which one should be addressed first. Things have gotten to the extent of these issues growing to the point of NASCAR actually tearing apart, as team owners have no money to fix the cars that are either breaking too frequently under crashing conditions or are way too unsafe to be driven by the NASCAR drivers. Their opinion on this matter is what everyone cares about the most, and unfortunately for NASCAR, it's not a good one. Let's talk about the more visible problem, one that saw team bosses boycott the quarterly meeting with NASCAR because they felt that the problem with the business model wouldn't get addressed. As of now, the business model question is up for renewal along with the media rights, as they are standing as they are from 2015 on an 8-year deal that is supposed to end before the beginning of the 2024 season, and the team owners are rightfully seeking more. What doesn't seem to be fair for the team owners is the fact that NASCAR is making the charters temporary and not permanent starting with the 2024 season, which ultimately means that the owners of the teams are not able to bring stable sponsors because they are not sure whether or not they can survive in the sport in the long term. Right now, around 60 to 80% of the revenue a team needs to bring to the table is through sponsorships. And just as we saw with Kyle Busch and M&M, things could go south very quickly if they are not able to provide a solid financial base to work with the sponsor in question. To top that off, team owners are taking away just 25% of the revenue, as 65% goes to the tracks and 10% goes to NASCAR. And you'd think that is more than enough, right? Well, there are two facts that would persuade you to think the other way. One, NASCAR owns the majority of the tracks that are held throughout America, which means they are taking the money that goes directly to the tracks. Such is the case with one of the most legendary tracks on the calendar, the Daytona 500. The number two fact is that, according to reports, team owners have made no money whatsoever in the past few years, and they are fighting to keep their heads above water, as reported by Curtis Polk, the business partner of Michael Jordan's 23XI Racing, as he added, "The economic model is really broken for the teams. We've gotten to the point where teams realize the sustainability in the sport is not very long term. This is not a fair system." Now, it's up to NASCAR to decide whether or not they'll agree on what the team owners are suggesting, which is making the charters permanent and not renewing them every couple of years, in this case, from 2016 to 2024. Right now, this is the question that will be asked on the 2024 media rights and business model renewal. But according to reports, even though Jim France wants to make something work for the team owners and provide them with a piece of the bone so that they'll have something to chew on for the next couple of years, he is dead set against making the charters permanent. Last October, Jeff Gordon, the vice chairman of Hendrick Motorsports, said that the team owners and NASCAR's leaderships are far away from finding a common ground on which the 2024 contract will be signed, and all of this could turn out to be horrible news for the sport. NASCAR is facing its demise sooner than expected, and the issue with the safety of the next-gen car has been brought under the spotlight yet again. This time, it's not only the drivers that are bashing it, but the team bosses as well, with Richard Childress hopping on the Speed Sports podcast and shedding more light on how this issue affects the team's ability to successfully develop a strong and reliant car for racing. Denny Hamlin has been the driver to continuously throw dirt towards the safety of the next-gen car. And if you consider the fact that he hasn't been in the best of relationships with NASCAR over the past couple of seasons, you'd think that he has something against the sport, right? Well, if you have a veteran hating you so strongly, then something must be wrong with the car. But this time, it's not only the JGR driver that is asking the important questions. How safe is the car we're currently racing in? When talking about this matter, Hamlin added, "The package was terrible. It's either the package or the tires. You can't pass. Cars that I was lapping 10 laps before, we caught a caution and I couldn't pass them for second. It's very difficult. Next-gen racing is all about strategy, execution on pit road. That's who wins. Rarely does the car that dominates or the best car win, simply because you can't control the race when you need to, or at least we couldn't. We made a great strategy call at the end to get positions back." This is part of what we're doing. We keep evolving the car, keep changing it. There's probably more changes on the way, so it's tough on the teams. The cost really falls on the teams for the most part, so that part of it is tough, but it's better for safety, so we just gotta do it. Obviously, the fact that the team owners are forced to pay for any kind of repair that's done on the car is cutting down on the already narrowed down profit from their pockets, which in the end results in the drivers and the entire team staff receiving less money thanks to this problem itself. Hamlin has been supported by Kyle Busch, who went on to say that the shorter spoilers and the loss of strakes have created less downforce for the car, which ultimately has been to the detriment of how the car performs and where the car is losing the most time on the track. The RCR driver, one that is on a mission this year, hasn't been shy about laying on the harsh truth about NASCAR, as he went on to add, obviously the shorter spoilers and the loss of strakes have created less downforce for the car. Ultimately, unfortunately, that has been a detriment to our team right now, and kind of what we are struggling with, to where we are loose at many of these tracks that we are going to, where we run with the lower downforce. We are still trying to work through that stuff and get our stuff better. We have to fine-tune where and what that is exactly to make sure that we come there and have a competitive effort. It's a work in progress for us trying to work through all those things. Furthermore, he was supported by his newest team boss, Richard Childress, who spoke on a podcast about the massive gap that the costs of the next-gen cars are causing in his and every other team owner's pockets. Prior to the introduction of it in 2022, nobody from the team owners thought that it would cost so much to actually maintain a NASCAR car. Not to mention the economic issues that has already thinned down their pocketbooks to a minimum. But this is the reality, and they all need to live in it as it is. When talking about the issue, the 77-year-old said, "I think as far as costs involving the next-gen cars, yes sir, the cost is nothing compared to where we thought it was going to be. The savings are not going to be there. Everything's gone up, constantly going up, which everyone knows today. Inflation hits everything. But if it hits this car harder than any of us ever expected, some of the components, we're using them a lot quicker than we anticipated to. It's expensive, but I think putting on a great show for the fans at the end of the day." Obviously, the team owners have a model they can follow right now, with Tony Stewart paving the way with his SRX series. But is this model sustainable for the long-term solution of NASCAR sport? A split is inevitable if both sides do not find common ground. But even if fans are on the side of team owners, as many said that NASCAR is no longer the sport they used to watch 10 or 20 years ago, and everything has turned in the interest of the money and the betting side of the sport, an issue that Stewart has talked about as well. One thing is for sure, NASCAR's future is not very bright with the current leadership, and while you can expect much more from a sport that's being run by people who haven't driven a race car for a day in their lives, changes can and need to happen as soon as possible. Right now, the situation stands as it is. The unsustainable business model and the safety and financial costs of the next-gen car are things that need to change in favor of the team owners, not the sport. Because from what we can see from this point of view, the RTA are the ones holding the cards, not NASCAR.